What's up, everybody? This is Derek Neff, Sentinel Response. I'm a USCCA firearms instructor, and I also lead the security team at my church. Wanted to give you guys some information today, just as if you're having some questions as far as what to do, where to get started, what to train for, how to plan your team meetings, and etc. I wanted to give you some information today to help you along in that process. So let's get started. But as a little preface to this, I wanted to just go over as far as like the biblical context or the Christian context of self-defense. So I've heard a lot of folks who don't believe that using a firearm or defending yourself is appropriate as far as a Christian. They tell you, well, you should turn the other cheek. I would say, okay, well, that's completely fine if it's against just me and I'm, preaching the gospel in some hostile country, where I'm going to be killed for my faith, without a weapon or without a way to defend myself. If that is the Lord's will, then that's the Lord's will. However, these active shooters, when they go into a place that has a lot of people in it, they really do not care who is in front of that gun. They don't care whether it's a pregnant woman, an elderly person, or a child. They don't care. They just want to stack bodies. And as an able-bodied man, I do not believe with every fiber of my being that it is a righteous thing for able-bodied men to just lay down and die and let these active shooters have their way with women and children and elderly. I don't believe that's a righteous thing. It is God gave us a duty to protect the innocent and the weaker people around us. That is our God-given duty. So I want to break that mentality today. It is a righteous thing for you to stand up and defend and protect the innocent and the weaker folks that are around you. All right. So, in my opinion, it's people who kind of take the stance, that they would rather just lay down and die and call it persecution. For a lack of better terms, that's a cowardly way out. So stand up, be the man and the protector that God has purposed and called you to be, and protect those folks around you. Amen. All right, folks. So a few quick things here today. I'm not going to try to hold you up too long, but so where to start? So where you start is you want to put a team together. You want to put a team together of people who are level-headed, people who are committed, and people who are situationally aware. So those are the three most important factors. For one, being committed is probably going to be one of the bigger ones, because when you put your team together, you are going to need to have meetings, you're going to need to have trainings, and I highly recommend, at bare minimum, that you guys meet and train together at least once a quarter. Now, you should be getting together and training more than that, but once a quarter is like your bare minimum. And the reason why that is because a lot of people have lives. They've got jobs. Maybe they're working overtime. They've got 4 or 5 kids, and they just have a lot of stuff, kids sports, and a lot of things going on. It's hard to kind of fit this stuff into their schedule. So meeting quarterly kind of helps, where people can plan in advance and stuff like that. But it would be good to meet together more often. That way you guys can be trained and ready in case something does happen. So the other thing is you want to make sure that you have people who are level-headed. You don't want to have somebody who's a hothead, somebody who's just, walking around with the "I wish somebody would" attitude. You need somebody that's, not going to be their last resort is sliding that finger onto the trigger. So you want the folks to have a certain level of compassion, because somebody could just be coming into church looking for ministry. desperately looking for ministry. They might look distraught, but they're coming looking for ministry. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're doing the Lord's work, and that you are, if somebody's coming wanting to meet Jesus, your first goal is to make sure that they meet Jesus in the spirit. Obviously, if an active shooter comes in, he's going to meet Jesus too, and in a different context. So you don't want, if somebody's coming in looking for ministry, you want to make sure they get ministry. And so you want to have a certain level of compassion. All right, not everybody's a perp. So I wanted to talk about training and things and how you guys should train. So first, like I already mentioned, the quarterly meetings and trainings, but the most important thing you are going to need to train with your team is mindset. So you are going to have to realize that if something does happen, your heart rate is going to shoot up, probably most likely above 145. And once your heart rate shoots up above 145, the first thing that happens is you lose manual dexterity. So your little fingers, movements like this ain't gonna work. So, because all the blood rushes out of your extremities into your core. So you're gonna have to learn how to mitigate that. The second key factor is that's gonna have mental effects. You could suffer from tunnel vision. You could suffer from freezing. You could suffer from where you basically sound canceling, where you really don't hear sounds. So you guys need to run through those things and train through stress inoculation and learn how to mitigate those things in case they happen. So mark that down. Stress inoculation. You need to train how to mitigate high heart rate and stress. The second thing is, if you do have folks on your team that are carrying firearms, you need to get them together and train. If you can, I know, for example, here in South Florida, it's kind of hard to find ranges that you can kind of get on where you could, move around and do some moving and shooting things. If you don't have that opportunity, maybe find a class locally that you can learn some defensive shooting tactics, because when it comes down to it, a self-defense situation is not going to be like standing at a range where your heart rate is at 65 and you're shooting at a paper target. Most likely you are going to have to get behind cover, or you are going to have to advance and shoot at somebody without hitting an innocent person. So you're going to need to learn some of those things as well. But what I highly recommend is that if you are a person who is proficient in firearms, or even if you're not, if you want to learn and you want to grow, take some classes, take some local firearms classes. But also what I recommend is maybe taking a instructor's course, and then also get certified as a range safety officer. So if you did find a range where you could kind of move more freely, having that range safety officer certification will give you some more freedom to be able to set the range up how you want to set it up, so you can train your team accordingly. Another training tactic to take into high consideration is the gun is not always going to be your best option for defense. I studied active shooter events for, I can't tell you how many hours, but there is a high number of them where you had people who were armed and the active shooter had already pulled the firearm on them and the gun was on them. They were within arm's reach of the person, but the only thing they knew how to do was go for their gun. And when they did, unfortunately, the active shooter shot them and killed them. So the gun didn't do them any good, because at that moment, it was not the right tool for the job. So things you need to learn is weapons takeaways. Now, I'm not talking about some stuff you saw in the movies. You need to learn real life, simple tactics that you can do to apprehend a firearm. One resource that I could recommend that you can get. I believe you can get it on Amazon, but you can look it up online. It's by a gentleman by the name of Alan Baris. He's been doing active shooter training for, man, very long time. So, but he has this, like, man, it's like 300 and something pages, but it's called Survive a Shooting. And he has a section here where you can learn some real life, some real practical strategies to use and implement as a team in case you cannot, you will not have time to pull your firearm. Learn these things, and but also when you learn these tactics, you are going to have to, it's just like training with a gun. You're going to have to practice them so they become, you know, you build like a, I guess you'd say in a sense, like a muscle memory for them. So you can't practice a move one time and expect, you know, you to be good. You've got to practice it over and over and over and over again. I also highly recommend, if you have a local dojo in your neighborhood, that you go join an MMA dojo. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go, you know, train at like a UFC level status, but maybe hit up a class once a week, or, you know, as much as you can fit in your schedule. MMA is great because you learn some striking, and you also learn some jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu is great for getting a hold of somebody. Also, the striking portion is good for, you know, grabbing a firearm from somebody, and if you needed to strike them to just break their focus, that is also an essential part. So, but I really enjoy MMA. I like to go and get punched in the face. So I love to train. I love to train MMA. But, and funny thing is I didn't know how untrained I was until I actually got on the mat with people who are trained. And I found out probably in the first 5 minutes that how bad I needed to actually train. So I've been doing it for a few years now, and I love it, man. It's you know, it's just, you also build some camaraderie there. So get into a dojo if you can. If you can't, find an MMA place, do some jiu-jitsu, but learn some more tactics. Yeah, grow. It's just great to grow as a person, and you know, anything that you can do to help yourself be a better protector is phenomenal. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is medical training. You are going to need to learn how to do some emergency casualty care. There's a slew of courses out there. I am actually working on putting some stuff together that's going to be on my YouTube channel, and I want to help you guys grow and give as much free information as I can to you guys to help you along the way. But locally, I also do a emergency first aid fundamentals class, and the most important things you're going to want to learn for like church security that are relevant are a sucking chest wound. So you're going to want to learn how to treat that. The way you treat that is with a vented chest seal, and I'll get into that in a later video. I'm not going to explain it right now. You also want to know how to put a tourniquet on. You also want to learn how to pack a wound and how to wrap a wound. And you also need to learn things about how to addressing indicators of certain medical, you know, somebody might just be in extreme shock, or they might have had a head injury. These things are even great to know aside from active shooter event. If you have a medical emergency in your church, you could provide enough care that'll keep the person stable until paramedics get there. So, but the whole point, you know, you don't need to learn how to be a neurosurgeon or an ER doctor. You just need to learn how to keep somebody stable until the paramedics get there. And I have spoken to a couple of paramedics who worked in areas, actually firefighters who worked in you know, areas that had shootings a lot, and that implemented these chest seals. And they said that 100% it will buy somebody an extra 30 minutes of life, or an hour of life, just until paramedics can get them to the hospital. So a chest seal for that is for only for a wound that is punctured a lung. Anything else you might be able to pack it or put a tourniquet. I mean, you obviously can't put a tourniquet on your abdomen. They only go on extremities. So, but yeah, you want to put together a medical training plan for your team. And the last but not least is you want to harden your location as a target. So what does that mean? So that means an active shooter, when they go, statistically, active shooters like to do recon. So if an active shooter is trying to choose you as a target, they are going to maybe attend a service, and they're going to look and assess and see how easy it is for them to, one, gain access to the building, and two, once they gain access, how easy is it going to be for them to start shooting, and is it going to be easy for them to kill as many people as they want to. Now, if you, for example, one of the great things about my church is that we implement is we try to keep the security team folks on like kind of on a covert level. So we're not like we're not walking around with pistols on our hips that are exposed. We're all concealed carrying, and because we want to keep that kind of that covert part. It's just better to stay low key. You don't want to be walking around with a pistol on your hip. For one, it's going to make some people feel very uncomfortable in your church. And number two, the element of surprise is always better. But so the great thing is you could have a couple of security team members be greeters at your church. So if you have maybe two or more strong statured men who are greeting people at the front door, the first thing an active shooter walking in is going to see is, okay, well, they've got strong men at the door. It might not be easy for me to get in there. So that's going to be a good location hardening tactic, is just having strong men serve as greeters that are, covert security team members. So another thing is not having opened side or back entrance secured, doors that are open. You don't want to have somebody. Yeah. So just make sure that you do not have any easy accessible doors that are unmanned or unlocked in locations in the rear or the side of the building where these people can enter undetected. So keep that in mind. Also, in your sanctuary, it's good to have a few kind of security team members that are like spread out throughout the congregation. You just want to have a good presence there. You want to make sure that these folks don't believe that your church is going to be easy to attack. And but greeters at the front door, doors around the side and back that are locked or manned are good. Obviously not somebody standing outside of the door, but on the inside. So if somebody comes in, I don't know if your church has it, but I know we've got a side door at our church where the offended people like to leave. So we will make sure we have somebody near that door. Obviously it also helps the people feel seen. Somebody who's been offended, they might need some attention or some personal ministry, and having somebody there can really help that person, feel seen. So, well, I wanted to, real quick, if you're trying to figure out what to do as far as learning mindset, this is another great book, The Warrior Mindset by Michael J. Askin and Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. This has really helped me to develop some mindset training and also training tactics to help mitigate stress, inoculation. So hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. I'm going to start jumping into some other things in later videos about concealed carry pistols and what that setup kind of looks like in a church security context. And also I'll cover some emergency medical things as well. So hopefully this information helped you guys. God bless, and be the protector God has purposed you to be.